I think I really started to fall in love with the world of technology probably 6 years ago, and it really came about with actually the beginning of Logic Sport. I think initially this is my third company. The first two companies that I started, one of them was a lending company, the other one was a medical devices company, and I think I started to realize that I wanted to have something that had a lot more magnitude and um, kind of was a lot more innovative and disruptive. So probably started to fall in love with the world of technology and data um, about 6 years ago. My background is actually statistics. So I think there I fell in love with the world of data and what you can do with it. But the part of technology really started when Juan shared a pain point with me, kind of gave us a background of the world of freight forwarding and the challenges that he was experiencing. It became really apparent to us that we could solve it with technology. And that's really when we started to fall in love with it. I wish I could say yes. It would be such an easier answer, but that was really 6 years ago that it started.
And you mentioned just how that some of the other companies you started. Have you always wanted to be an entrepreneur?
Yeah, that one really clearly yes. So both of our parents are actually founders. They both built successful businesses repeatedly. I think seeing them build successful companies, I think we always knew that we wanted to start companies. Coming out of college, instead of joining, I saw all my friends joining Google or Facebook or Amazon or Microsoft, big companies. I knew that we wanted to go down the path of entrepreneurship. So that one for us was a lot clearer. I think we grew up, at the kitchen table at dinner, hearing stories of our parents having ups and downs, a lot of downs, but mostly ups and kind of netting out positively. But from the beginning, I think it was really clear and apparent to us that entrepreneurship was kind of the path that we wanted to carve for ourselves.
So the other thing that I know I had the pleasure of interviewing you about 2 or 3 weeks ago online for Ryan here, and one of the big takeaways was I wanted to understand, and I'm still more curious. We only had a little time then, so I want to pick your brains a little bit. What you mentioned that conversation with Ryan about the forwarding sector. What was that sort of penny drop moment? What really triggered your mind? You know what? I can see this problem, and yes, I reckon we can fix it.
I think when Juan came to me with the problem, he was working at a freight forwarding company, a big freight forwarder out of the US that recently got acquired by Maersk. He was having a lot of trouble managing his customer relationships and providing visibility. And a lot of the work that he was doing was actually providing visibility in Excel tables. I think anytime that you see workflows that happen in Excel consistently, a light bulb kind of goes off and tells you there's an opportunity here. So I think it was partially that, but really it came about from us doing a lot of discovery with freight forwarding companies. So initially when we started the business, we went around South Florida in Miami and talked to like 50 different freight forwarding companies, really trying to understand and validate that the pain points that Juan was observing working at a freight forwarding company resonated with people. And they did. So we knew that the problem was there. We knew that people wanted to fix that problem. I think initially though, what we were positioning as technology being the solution, people did not really buy into that vision. So it was a really, really tough beginning for us where we were going to the market and telling people like technology is going to change this industry, and mostly getting pushback from people. I think out of 50 companies that we spoke to, probably 5 told us like, hey, this makes a lot of sense. The rest of the folks just told us like the industry is not going to change. It's all relationships based, and that's not going to be digitized at any time. And we largely agree with that. I think it will continue to be a people business, but fueled and amplified by technology. But it was probably in that process, seeing that people were validating the pain point, that we got really excited and kind of saw that there was an opportunity in the market. That, and honestly the sheer size, I think we got really excited about being a layer that can empower and fuel the industry that ships freight globally. I think the magnitude of impact that we felt that we could have, that was incredibly exciting for us.
Yeah, really well said. One thing that really been impressed and blown away by the Logic's board is that it's not just a data company, it's actually been almost like a UX, or you talk about a people person, how the boarding sector is based on relationships. And from the feedback I've had with the boards I've spoken to since building our relationship, and doing the show, and now putting an event together, is the feedback is phenomenal about how it empowers boarders to build that personal relationship in a way that they've never experienced before with their customers. So tell us a bit about that, how that's the data empowers them to really give them agility that they've never had.
Yeah, it's a really good question as well. Generally, I think people that are not from the industry have the perception that moving freight is really easy. And what we've understood was there's a ton of complexity that freight forwarding companies have to deal with. And ultimately, freight forwarders' customers are really hiring the freight forwarder to abstract and take away that complexity. So what we started to realize was we can empower freight forwarding companies to abstract that visibility with technology. How can you make a process that seems very complex and seems tedious to your customers, and that often can act as a black hole where people don't have a lot of visibility? How can we empower that and make that much better with technology? What we see with our customers is that they use our product to provide a better experience to their customer base, better visibility to their customer base as well, and in turn it makes their customer relationships a lot stickier. It helps them win new revenue and win new customers. But at the end of the day, it helps them build a much more scalable company. I think the way to the future is you use technology to help you scale, as opposed to constantly having to rely on people to help you scale. So we're really big believers that as freight forwarding companies and customs brokers adopt better technology and more technology, it's really with the purpose of kind of bulletproofing their business towards the future, but also with the purpose of scaling in a much more systematic and sustainable way.
Thank you, Julian. And when you consider now the times we are in, especially with Shanghai now, lockdowns, the ability to have data to make informed decisions and quick movements to cargo, decision making around how they can fulfill orders. Without that, the old Excel spreadsheets, by the time they get their data or make decisions, is too late. So what Logic Sport, from what I've seen and what I've heard, is it really empowers those customers again to quickly change solutions, or create a solution, I should say. The boards can do that because of the type of supply chain disruptions that we've experienced through COVID and continue to experience, which has meant those boarders who have been able to have that sort of access to data has really blown away the competition. Getting back to you as a person, though. So now that you come into the forwarding sector, and I know that you and Juan have sort of shaken things up a lot, where do you see things moving from the way of UX and data technology? Talk about the way of the future. You're talking to companies all around the world. You're here in Australia for the first time. What are your thoughts and views about where the industry is heading?
I think there's two things. So we have customers today in like 17 different countries, and generally we hear the same things across the board, frankly. I think the first one for us, when we take a look at freight forwarding companies and customs brokers, ultimately, like, your assets are your people, your relationships with other freight forwarding companies, but what we really want to enhance is your customer relationships. So for us, everything starts from the customer experience. How can you make those relationships a lot stickier with technology, and how can you deliver a better experience to your customer base than what you're delivering today? We fundamentally feel that that's the way to grow and to scale your business. So that's, for us, kind of the primary driver. Everything should focus around customer experience when it comes to technology. The second component that we see, and frankly we recognize as a company we're not there, but I really do think the industry heads that direction, is how can you leverage data to make better decisions? That was one of the things, actually, kind of circling back to the question of the aha moment. When we did a lot of the customer discovery, I would ask people, how are you using your data to make better decisions? Like, you are a freight forwarding company, you have 5, 10, 15 years of data in your system. how are you using that to make better decisions? And people would look at us like we were crazy. It's like a lot of people did not think that there was value in that data. And I think there is, honestly. I think if you can look at data to help make better decisions internally, if your customers can look at data to help make better decisions and more informed decisions, I think that probably will be the way of the future. Like better predictability. Obviously, I think people talk about AI and blockchain and a lot of different kind of hot words in tech, but to me, it's all about how do you leverage that data component to enhance your business and strengthen the relationships that you have with your customers.
Thank you. I think, yeah, one of the things I've just picked up on there is you talk about, you know, it's a laugh to hear that people can't see the value in that. We may have said that in the past, when now forwarders who don't have data capability being literally losing customers to companies who have got that data analytics and the ability to have dashboards that can express and win business with their clients. So yeah, it's moving so rapidly towards that data embracement. We've got a range of industry experts on today's vote, and I want to take this opportunity to open the floor. That's okay, Julian. To really invite you all to ask Julian any questions you may have, any thoughts, any feedback around. You know, we've just gone through Port of Melbourne, a couple of the terminals here, and even the technology going through the terminals in a place like Melbourne is filtering through to borders, right through. We've got courier companies here as well to last mile. So I'd love to open the floor. If anyone's got any questions for Julian, please put your hand up and we'll love to have you involved. He doesn't lie.
I can ask one if you want.
Yeah, Zara. Go ahead.
Julian, one of the things is you're using existing data that forwarders use in their third-party software. How did you convince them to use that data, and how does the service provider, the software company, feel about that?
Can I just repeat that question for the audience? So Zoran's just asked a really great, interesting question. In short, I'm going to let me know if I got this right. Is that how has Julian and LogicSport managed to convince third-party providers to share their data with LogicSport? Is that the right summary?
Correct. Yeah.
We have a lot of customers here, so I wish I could ask them. I think generally speaking, I think remaining agnostic in the industry and customers seeing that we have not, we won't be a threat to their business. Ultimately, we want to be a software company and not play in their space. I think that certainly helped. Second, I think we've invested really heavily into security policies to make sure that the data is really safe and backed up and that we're, compliant. But ultimately, just how freight forwarding, it boils down to trust. It's can people trust us to be the right partner for them? We make sure to have all those policies internally to protect people's data, but it's at the end of the day, it's the same thing. It's a people-to-people business, regardless of whether there's technology in the middle, and trust is a big part of that. It's a good question. I'll have to ask people why they trust us. In terms of the software companies that we sit on top of or integrate to, a big part of this is ultimately those companies who want software providers like LogicSport to integrate to them. It makes their product way more sticky. It means that they have additional hooks into their customer base that makes it harder for their customers to turn off the system or go work with another provider. So we think ultimately what we're doing also helps the operating systems that we integrate to and sit on top of it. And frankly, I think everybody has recognized that those companies built internally towards the freight forwarding company and towards the operator. That's not the persona that we built for. We focus on building software for the freight forwarder's customer, for the shipper, and helping the freight forwarding company offer a much better experience through us. And it's building software is really tricky. You have to define the persona that you're building for. I think the operating systems built for operators and LogicSport built for shippers. So different businesses, and so far everybody has played really nicely, and I think it's excited about what we're doing in this space. Great question.
Great
Not an easy one, by the way.
Great answer. It's great.
I've got an idea without notice, so I could get in trouble for this. But Ben from ATO. I'm going to put you on the spot, mate, if I'm allowed to.
Why did you trust us?
Exactly. So this is all none premeditated from us here. It's something that I'll just thought up as I do. So Ben is a happy customer of Logicsport from across the ocean shipping. So I want to ask you as a first hand, you can't go off the boat to answer. What was your experience before and after Logicsport?
Yes, right. Yeah, Ben from across the ocean shipping. So we probably went through like 3 different tracking companies before, and we were very adamant we didn't want to use CargoWise's tracking system like as such. We wanted to be different. We wanted, we didn't want to be like everyone else, and we went after like 3 failed attempts of other tracking systems. Logicsport works. We've even this. No. It's been a good experience. And like mainly it just works, and we're happy to. We've been launching it with all our clients now. Feedback's good. When we speak with Logicsport about ideas and changes, they listen, which is refreshing. Right. Hope that answers your question.
Yeah, thanks.
Julian, thank you. I'm here from Import Export TV. Just a quick question for our audience. In terms of the changing times, especially during COVID over the last 2 to 3 years, and as they've just mentioned, changing customer needs, how do you actually change for those customers? How do you adapt, and how are you flexible to change for them?
And then how are we adaptable and flexible? Honestly, I think what we ended up realizing was with COVID, the digital transformation of the space accelerated really, really quickly. I think everybody went from working in the office and visiting customers in person to working from home. And our business started to grow really rapidly, but along it, customer expectations shifted really quickly. So for us, I think what it boiled down to was our customers are going to need much better technology, much faster than what we can deliver. So the way that we built the business is fundraising. Last year we raised $45 million in venture, and it was all with the purpose of how can we hire people faster so that we can build product much faster for our customer base. So I'd say the big kind of thing there that we focused on was product delivery and making it continuous and much faster than we could before, and we needed the capital to be able to accomplish that. That's one. The second thing, I think with the rise of COVID and supply chain disruptions, the basic question of where's my stuff really came to the forefront of shippers' minds. I think people wanted to understand what was happening with their supply chain and have better control around it. So we've focused really heavily on helping freight forwarders answer that basic question to their customer base. Like, where's my stuff and how much money do I owe you? And we've made really heavy investments to facilitate and kind of enhance those product functionality so that we can make people, help people adopt to their customer needs much faster and in a much more continuous fashion than we could before.
And how do you stay ahead of those trends?
How do we stay ahead of those trends? Yeah, we had a really interesting meeting this morning with one of our customers, and what we were explaining to them is like a huge part of our job is listening to the freight forwarder and asking, what do you want and what do you think your customers want? But we have an entire team that's a user research team that's their entire job is having conversations with shippers every day, building panels to try to understand what do shippers want, what are their problems, and how can we fix them. And more than what do they want is like, what are the challenges that they're facing in today's supply chain? Freight forwarding companies have great understanding of that, but we make sure to validate that directly with shippers as well. So the biggest kind of tool that we have in our arsenal are shipper panels to understand their problems, their pain points, and then build solutions around that, as opposed to being a provider that just focuses on building features and modules, which I think is really easy to fall in the trap of that. So I'd say that's probably relying on our customers and relying on shippers to help guide our product roadmap is the biggest one. Yeah, great question. Thank you.
So for those of you who didn't hear the question, I'll paraphrase. So where do you want to take Logic's board? What's next for Logic's boards, and where do you think the market's going?
We want to be the most important technology company in all of supply chain. Honestly, I think from the very beginning, when Juan and I started the company, I think we recognized that we could build a company and potentially sell it early and make a really good amount of money. But for us, it was never really about that. It was frankly about impact and scale. How can we have impact at a global scale? We think freight forwarding and customs brokerage is the perfect market for that. I mean, you're talking about percentage points of GDP, so it's the perfect market to really innovate. But if we think about this, 5 or 10 years out, I'd love to wake up and see Logicsport as the biggest company in the supply chain space when it comes to technology, at least. And I'm not entirely sure what that looks like. Maybe one day going public. I think that's every entrepreneur's dream, frankly. But more than how we get there, I think we focus heavily on how do we do the right things to get there, and the rest will kind of take care of itself. So hopefully that answers the question. I didn't mean to dodge it, but hopefully it answers it. Thank you.
Right. All right. Well, I'm sure, as I said, you'd all like to talk to Julian and Juan one-on-one. So we're here until 7 o'clock on the vessel. So please take advantage of this amazing opportunity to speak to them. I'm sure you've got your own experiences, questions, insights that they'd love to hear about. They came all the way from the US to Australia to hear from customers and hear from forwarders, shippers such as yourself about what your thoughts and views are of the industry and where it's heading. So please take this opportunity to speak to them. Enjoy many more drinks. Enjoy the views as well. I think it's a little bit chilly outside. There's some more food coming out. Thanks, Ian. Thank you all for coming along again. Please join me in thanking Julian Alvarez, CEO and co-founder of Logicsport, and Juan as well.